Hello, and welcome to the Banknote Dens, the many faces of money. Today we'll be taking a look at an obsolete $5 banknote from the Nebraska Territory. This banknote, issued in the city of Omaha, also features a side-wheel steamboat named the Omaha. These banknotes were a little bit different. They wound up being used in a utopian society 2 states away. In 1804, the Lewis and Clark expedition stopped and made camp just north of the modern city of Omaha, Nebraska. Just 50 years later, and with treaties signed, the city of Omaha was soon planned out. In the original town plat, there were to be 320 blocks, with streets 100 feet in width. The first completed house was built at 12th and Jackson Streets, built by the Council Bluffs and Nebraska Ferry Company, which hosted the first residents of Omaha, William P. and Rachel Snowden. It was named the St. Nicholas Hotel, but it was commonly referred to as the Claim House. As it was the first house, it was reportedly a rather crude affair made of logs. The house was used by the Snowdens as a boarding house for the ferry company's employees. The building was completed in July 1854, and on August 13, 1854, it also hosted the first religious services by the Reverend Peter Cooper. The Omaha Claim Club was quickly formed to protect the settlers in the area from claim jumpers, and they often held meetings at this location. The town started to grow, and just 1 year later, the first school was opened, hosting 40 students who started on July 1st, 1855. The first photo studio opened in Omaha in 1856, and the city was officially incorporated on February 2nd, 1857, just 3 years after it was first laid out on a plat map. But that was 6 months after this banknote was issued. The city of Omaha was in place and growing just as the Panic of 1857 took place. Banknotes at this time were issued and backed by private entities, and there was more blind faith than security in them. Beginning on August 24, 1857, the Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company had been suspended. It so happened that Edwin Ludlow, the cashier of the Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company, embezzled large amounts of money to facilitate his own stock market operations, and that, combined with his irresponsible lending practices, led the company into dire straits. When the news of the suspension was released, many sought to close out their accounts, but the company could not pay out the specie for the amount of banknotes that were being turned in, as they were $5 million short. This was known as a run on the bank. When the news spread that the bank could not pay its investors and debt holders, the true panic hit. Many more people ran to all their other banks to cash in their notes, which exceeded the bank's coffers. This news spread and multiplied across the nation. While the Panic of 1857 was precipitated by the failures and misconduct, including theft and inept lending practices, of Edwin Ludlow, it would be a mistake to place all of the blame on his shoulders. In fact, while Ludlow was arrested and faced charges, there were never any accounts recording any punishment received. The true nature of the collapse would have to fall on all the various banks across the nation, which were also issuing massive amounts of banknotes that were far in excess of their holdings. So much so, according to Obsolete Paper Money by Q. David Bowers, that on January 1st, 1857, New York City banks had $43,974,000 in liabilities, but only had specie totaling $6,400,000. $557,000 to back them all. That's over 6.7 times their liabilities. This fractional reserve practice was common, but the reality was that there was no set standard for banks to hold specie for their issued obligations and banknotes. Many banks had failed before, and that's why these types of banks were called wildcat banks, as they were known to be unduly risky at times. Banknotes left from these banks are also called broken banknotes, after these broken banks. We switch over now to Illinois, where there was an organization called the Bishop's Hill Colony. This colony was a community made up of religious Swedish immigrants who were seeking a utopian society by living in communes on the American prairies. Located about 350 miles east of Omaha, Bishop's Hill Colony was founded in 1846 in Illinois by Eric Jansen, a religious zealot who claimed to be a true prophet who spoke the word of God. Jansen and his followers eventually conducted violent uprisings, for which he was arrested in 1845. He escaped dressed as a woman and crossed into Norway, where he secluded himself until he, along with over 1,000 of his followers, sailed from Norway to the United States. A female cousin of Eric Jansen was at Bishop Hill as well, and she was married to a John Root by Jansen. But when her husband tried to leave the compound with his wife and child, he was not allowed to take them along. On May 13, 1850, Jansen was killed by John Root, who served 1 year for manslaughter. After Jansen's death, a committee of 7 trustees was elected to run the colony. The Panic of 1857 struck larger cities extremely hard. Many banks with large amounts of money failed, and there was no protection for their customers, who were simply left with worthless paper in their hands. Soon, the panic hit even the Nebraska Territory, and the panic took its toll on the Western Exchange Fire and Marine Insurance Company in 1857. When they closed, the company was bought by the Bishop Hill Colony in Illinois, which aimed to renew the bank and issued many more banknotes with the Bishop Hill Colony listed as the depositor on the individual banknotes. The recent lessons of the Panic of 1857 were not learned, and the mismanagement and investments made by one of the trustees, an Olaf Johnson, the Bishop Hill version of the Western Exchange Fire and Marine Insurance Company, failed. Its banknotes once again worthless, and the colony left in ruin that would cause its final dissolution in 1861. The vignette on this $5 banknote issued by the Western Exchange Fire and Marine Insurance Company showcases a steamboat which proudly bears the name Omaha on its sidewheel housing. There were a few boats named Omaha, however, not just this one. The Omaha sidewheeler on this note is the one built in Madison, Indiana in 1856, and though little information could be found on this vessel, it is known that it carried hardware and building materials on its maiden voyage. Its captain was Andrew Wineland, and its clerk was a Mr. Wilcox. This note, dated 1856, before the collapse of the bank and the sale to Bishop Hill Colony, had quite a bit of circulation in the Omaha area. It also had a depositor who was a private citizen, though I am unable to decipher their name. The serial number was also handwritten on this note, unlike the Bishop Hill Colony note, which was stamped. The Omaha sidewheeler on this banknote was known as a dependable vessel. It plied the waters along the Missouri River along a 770-mile route between St. Louis, Missouri, and Sioux City, Iowa, for 9 years before sinking after striking ice along the river in 1865. In 1857, a sidewheel ferry named Omaha was built, and in 1900 another steamboat was built, originally called the Laura, but it was later renamed Omaha. Steamboats along the Missouri River were smaller than those along the Mississippi River, but were no less equipped and were equally ornate in their furnishings. Here we can see a bill of lading for the steamer Omaha for hides, bales of hemp, and packages of merchandise, dated May 4, 1857. The bill of lading on the lower right is simply an enhanced version to help make the text a little more legible. The name Omaha is taken from the Omaha tribe and means those that go against the wind or those that go against the current, and it is thought to have been derived from their seasonal migration along the Missouri River. It is a fitting name for any vessel, especially one who makes its way along the winding Missouri River. That brings us to the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and remember, visit banknoteden.com for more information about these and other banknotes.